I'd done as much practically as I could.
The sets were elaborate, the fights vicious, and the horses were real. But there was a whole lot more than this that went into the making of The Harder They Fall. Most of what we see in the movie was fully created on the scene. These production values were high.
The name of the train, CAB, is a Chadwick Boseman homage.
Regina King facing off against a train bravely was all real. We don't know whose performance is better, King's or her horses. The explosions? Yep, they made that happen.
Only had to enhance a couple of ways with the burning money.
All the streetlights in Redwood were practical as well and provided the perfect ambiance.
Every stunt in this film is me.
Jonathan Majors went into hardcore cowboy mode right off the bat.
Early on, I said, I want to do all the stunts, all of them. Horses, guns, shootout, all of it. Hand to hand, all of it.
Performing all of his own stunts was key for Majors getting into the mindset of his character, so he learned how to ride and work with a horse well enough, just like any real cowboy would. Majors put in a lot of hours working with his horse co-star at the Bonanza Creek Ranch, making sure they'd be ready for their time on camera.
Who here can drive a train? Everybody but him.
Idris Elba loved making this film, there's no doubt about it. But he would have preferred to work with an animal that he wasn't allergic to.
I mean, I had to learn, we both had to learn to ride horses, but I'm allergic to horses, okay?
Elba being allergic to the horse he did multiple scenes with wasn't great, but these animals were so intuitive, and the actors still managed to connect and perform well with the film horses. Even if he was a bit wheezy. The team literally had to take breaks every now and then so Elba could take a breather away from the stallions.
You know, the day was
Everyone on this set was committing, but sometimes it went a little bit too far. Idris Elba and Dion Cole actually wound up making contact when they hit each other at times.
We was just so passionate that we ended up connecting a few times, and you can see it on our eyes when we shoot. Those is real hits.
While it may not have been the safest bet, it definitely worked.
He hit me, I hit him, and they went, all right now, let's get back to the movie, and we did, and nothing but love.
This was actually the smaller version of the major fight. The plan was actually to have a bigger battle, if you can imagine it, but everything had to be scaled back with their limited production time. The incredible fight between Stagecoach Mary and Trudy Smith is truly one of the highlights of the movie, but it didn't come easy. The actresses actually came back to the set early just so they could rehearse this fight, even though Netflix didn't want them to.
The two of us and our stunt doubles rehearsed that for 2 days straight.
For the two actors, it was all about making sure they could do justice and show off just how incredible two women duking it out on screen could be.
I wanted it to look as dangerous as possible.
It took 7 days for the crew to film the scene within the train, and it took a whole lot of effort from everyone involved. Filming this closed quarters scene was definitely tricky since there was such a limited space, so everything was laid out in storyboards beforehand, just to make sure they could capture everything they wanted to effectively. They managed to using a Steadicam and another camera set up on a special motorized slider that was hooked up to the ceiling of the train. The goal was really just to do as many crazy things as they could.
And that's, a lot of creative license, because those guns don't have shells that drop. But in my movie, they do.
From the script to the final movie, there were a number of changes on the fly as the team went about filming in a flexible way so they could creatively collaborate together.
What was in the original script and what we ended on is completely different.
Whenever there was a chance to build on a big fight scene, the team jumped on it and built the biggest battle they could dream of actually getting done. Believe it or not, there are real Western movie towns that just exist in New Mexico. 4 of them were home to the set of The Harder They Fall during shooting, but what we're introduced to on screen isn't at all what these sets looked like before. A whopping 250 different shades were used to create all these sets. For Douglastown, the team put a lot of focus into Stagecoach Mary's bedroom, since that's the only intimate room of a character that we actually see. It might not be the flashiest of towns, but it's still a stellar design. Redwood City might just be the most stunning Western town we've ever seen. with gorgeous jewel tones and an impressive mayor's mansion, which was built from the ground up specifically for this production. Then, of course, there was Maysville.
We did do a couple of extensions and matte paintings.
While the whole city looks to be an even tone, there were actually about 70 different shades of white paint used to make everything look realistic with contrast and depth. What might be most impressive is how they managed to obtain the brilliant white dirt. The trick was ground-up pumice stones spread over top of all the existing dirt. Not every set includes appearances from metal animal models, but these figures turned out to be the best solution to help the actors practice an essential cowboy skill: lassoing. These practice animals may not have been real, but clearly they held their own. That wear and tear is rough. The good, the bad, and the ugly. This team filmed through it all. Shooting a movie in the desert is tough. This kind of wicked sandstorm was a regular occurrence. When the production spent some time filming near the border of New Mexico, just over in Colorado, they got snowed out off the bat. These rough filming conditions, on top of including so many complex stunts and horses, meant there was a lot of planning required and perseverance, but this whole crew was so passionate about the film that they made it work, no matter what hurdles they faced. After all,
We shot that joint in the middle of a pandemic.
The Harder They Fall faced some tough challenges when the pandemic hit, and pretty early on in their process. Just 5 weeks in,
We were scheduled to shoot, and then Idris came down with COVID, and we shut down.
Elba just happened to be one of the first major celebrities to come down with the virus, making tensions extra high.
We went through a trauma. The first day before we started filming, I caught COVID, and this is at the beginning
Oh, my
cycle.
goodness.
So the film halted for about 8 months.
Unfortunately, the actor didn't really get to make the first impression he'd hoped for with the cast and crew.
I remember meeting everyone. We were greeting, hugging, kissing, and then I had to tell them, hey man, I have COVID.
While the team of The Harder They Fall was well prepared and made sure all their ducks were in a row, none of them could have prepared for what was coming.
And we didn't have as much time as we would have liked to.
The team was forced to downsize a lot in terms of the scale of the scenes, as well as just the amount of time they actually had for filming. But nevertheless, they tried to fit in everything they needed with their limited time on set to make sure the movie could be as good as they wanted it to be, and not over budget.
Fun part was like bending genres and creating with Cuddy.
The wicked soundtrack for this movie was something special, and considering Jay-Z was one of the film's producers, it's no surprise. Since he was involved, Jay-Z also contributed to the songwriting and produced the tracks. Loads of the pieces included in the film were written especially for the movie and brought it to the next level. The tunes are so cleverly placed, they even offer hints throughout the movie. What makes these songs even better is the fact that some of them are sung by the actual cast members. For the rest of the tracks, vocal talents came from the Fisk Jubilee Singers, Kid Cudi, Lauryn Hill, CeeLo Green, and Seal. Having Jeymes Samuel as the movie's writer and director was a huge bonus. He was also responsible for writing and producing tons of the songs in this soundtrack. Making this film was a huge feat, even without the pandemic delay, but it was definitely worth the wait for this feast for our eyes and ears. Which scene was your favorite?